place where I'm standing right now is the exact location where my father met Adolf Hitler on September 20th, 1934. Hitler came with his Mercedes, stopped right here in front of the cemetery, which is right behind me, walks out of the car. My father stood where I'm standing right now, stood right in front of him, gave him a long stare. My father answered, replied with a Heil Hitler salute. And then Hitler walks in to attend the funeral. Hitler is standing here, a crowd of people in the background, and the grave is probably here. Hi.
Hallo.
You speak English?
Nee.
Okay, Entschuldigung für mein Deutsch. Ich habe eine Frage. I'm looking for the grave of Edwin Bechstein. It's supposed to be here somewhere.
Asphaltweg
Ja?
und dann rechts. Und dann kommen Sie direkt drauf zu. Auf Bechstein.
So, dort?
Ja, praktisch so in der Richtung.
Edwin Bechstein.
Ja.
Oh, okay, danke schön. Tschüss, danke. Hitler standing right next to Bechstein's widow. Massive crowd behind him. In this junction, my father's life made a turn and was practically saved from the horrors of the Holocaust. This is where it happened, right here.
Arriving at Berlin by connection, a walk through the city revives history at every street corner. Remnants of a world almost forgotten, a metropolitan rebuilt on the ruins of the Second World War. A city that is a living reminder of the atrocities made in the name of the Fatherland. I returned to Berlin almost a century after my grandparents' narrow escape on a midnight train out of the city. Memories and possessions were left behind. Most of the Jews living in pre-World War II Berlin were located in the eastern side of the city, just like my grandparents' family in 1933.
On the second floor, right there, second balcony, on the second floor, this was my father's home when he was a child living here in Berlin decades ago. And this is how it looks now. Obviously, it's renovated. This is where my father lived here in Berlin, where he grew up, basically. All his childhood was here. Now we're trying to access the apartment where he lived. People are at work. This is Monday morning. I remember endless stories of my father telling me about him growing up here in this square. First floor. This is the first floor. Now we need another one. Wow. My father used to live in this house 80 years ago, 80 Jahre.
This house?
This house, yeah.
Oh.
Israelski family, they lived here, and I promised him I'd take a picture of the balcony, if that's okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, this balcony. Yeah, this is it. This is where my father lived, in this apartment. This very nice man helped us in. We're very thankful. This is the place where they left Germany in 11 o'clock at night after my father met Adolf Hitler in Bergstrasse number 21, and they had to escape. This is the view of my father's childhood. Zionskirchplatz, Zion Square, these streets. 85 years after the midnight escape from this apartment right here, I am now here again, closing a circle, and I cannot describe how emotional it is for me to be here. I heard so many stories about this apartment. This is the living room.
150,000 Jews lived in Berlin of 1933, the same year Adolf Hitler was appointed chancellor. The Jews living in Berlin thought it was just another passing trend of nationalism, and there was no need to worry. Life was good until then. Business, trade, most of the Berlin Jews were living a secular life and openly celebrating Jewish events. This was a big Jewish wedding in Berlin, 1933. Norbert married his beloved Maida. Everyone gathers for this wonderful occasion. Uncles, cousins, grandparents, 52 members of a Jewish family living in Berlin of the 1930s. None of them had the slightest clue of what was going to happen soon. This is Abraham and his wife Ethel. They have a daughter named Gretchen and a 10-year-old boy named Manfred, who is my father.
Ich heiße Manfred Israelski, bin in Berlin geboren. Ich bin 90 Jahre alt. Ich war in Deutschland bis 13 Jahre. Ich hatte eine sehr gute Jugend.
In 1933, Germany was still home for Jews, but not for long. (1934) was the turning point for Jews in Germany, and especially for Manfred, when one Thursday morning, a state funeral was taking place in the cemetery only blocks away from the family home.
רק חצי שעה לפני זה אמרו לי שהיטלר יבוא. הוא בא ב-20 מכוניות, מרצדס, כולם דומות. לפני שראיתי אותו כבר פחדתי, כבר התרגשתי, ונטיל פחד עלינו, זה שטן הכי גדול. ואי אפשר היה לחזור כבר, כי שני הרחובות היו כבר מלאים מאות אנשים.
כלומר, בעצם היית תקוע שם, שאתה יודע שהשטן בדרך.
כן, אתה גם לא יכול להסתתר. Die Nazis, so eine Kerle, Riesenkerle, haben ihn umarmt. כולם עשו הייל, הייל. הוא עבר לאט לאט, בקושי 3 מטר ממני, ואני עומד היהודי, ואני פרעתי. אז גם עשיתי הייל. לא הייתה ברירה. Als ich ihn gesehen habe, habe ich sehr Angst gehabt. Ich habe Angst gehabt, man würde sich erkennen, dass ich ein Jude bin. I was looking like a Jew, not like a Nazi. And I was very afraid that anybody would recognize me. But no, they were busy with Hitler. And I was running away. I went back to my parents. And they're very... What's happened? What happened? I was out. I told them. They were afraid. I was a boy. I was 11.
We're now in Weissensee Cemetery. It's the oldest Jewish cemetery in Berlin. It's been here for hundreds of years, and most of the Jewish community who passed away before the Second World War, before the Holocaust, are buried here. Soon after my father met Hitler in 1934, there was a chain of events, and one of the events that followed was his grandmother. Her first name was Rosa, and her last name was Stahl. She passed away soon after, and she's buried here. It's going to be a little bit challenging to find her grave.
The old Jewish cemetery in Weissensee, an enchanted place. like a maze in a jungle. Overgrown paths with sunken gravestones, silent except for occasional birdsong. Shady trees over the graves and columns of monumental mausoleums. A place full of history and a place full of stories.
It's like in a labyrinth of graves. I think it's this one. Lega? Stahl. Yeah, here. Wow. Wow, here it is. This is it. This is my great-grandmother. That's her. And there's my father. It's amazing how there's no writing in German. Everything is Hebrew, despite the fact that none of them knew Hebrew. My father did not know Hebrew when he immigrated to Palestine. Of course, his grandmother did not speak Hebrew, but her grave is all in Hebrew. Dreise Stahl. Okay, Rosa, it's nice to meet you. I've heard stories about you. Your grandson was an amazing father to me. I'm happy your grave was revealed today. If you would have known what happened after your death to your family, may your soul rest in peace.
The day my father met Hitler, that was his turning point. It was Hitler's piercing gaze to Manfred and the rise of Nazism in Free Berlin that made my grandfather Abraham decide to leave Germany before it's too late. The family set sail on a rundown ship. For 3 weeks they went on a harrowing journey until finally they reached a safe haven in Palestine of 1936. But out of the greater family members who stayed behind in Europe and thought that my grandfather had lost his mind going to the desert, less than 10 survived the Second World War. That pivotal moment when my father saw Hitler up close changed his life direction. He was spared from the horrors, and that is the story I grew up with. Weeks after he turned 92, my father passed away peacefully in his sleep. After his passing, I wondered, are there any more people living in the world today who met Hitler? And how did it change their lives? And who was this man, Adolf Hitler, that drove the world in his madness? Who was this sociopath on a personal level? And how did it all start? April 20th, 1889, in the town of Braunau Inn in Upper Austria, in this yellow brick building on the ground floor at 6:30 a.m., Eloise and Clara had a baby boy. They would name him Adolf. In the first 26 years of his life, he would be a total disappointment to his father and to himself. Dropped out of school in grade 6, he aspired to be an artist and a painter, but hardly made a living as a street painter in Vienna. Applied and rejected twice from art schools. But as a corporal in the First World War, he would win the Iron Cross for his bravery in a battle. And this was his turning point, where he would start the new chapter of his book of life. Over the next 30 years, he will change the world forever. Before his 56 years were done, he would bring chaos and unprecedented destruction when he will start a world war that would lead to the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, some of my own family, and indirectly to the death of over 60 million people around the world. Here is where it all began. And here is where his life ended. April 30th, 1945, Berlin, his diabolical plan in tatters. As the Allies were only hundreds of meters away from him, where he orchestrated the last days of the war. There, in the depth, in the dark, he takes his own life in his underground bunker. "75 years after his death, I, Ronen Israelski, the son of a boy who once looked at him in Berlin, to the honor of my father and his most beloved ones, and to the honor of all victims of his war, I decided to go and find the last living people in the world today who were there, close to Hitler, face to face. Ordinary people whose stories have never been told. Until now."
No, I'm not a Nazi hunter. I'm a son of a Jewish Holocaust survivor who met Hitler in 1934, and I'm actually looking for more people that met Hitler that maybe can share their experience.
My name is Russell Reiter. I live in Toronto, Canada. I am the son of Richard Reiter, who was a boy who was raised close to Adolf Hitler. My father was schooled as a member of the Hitler Youth, and as a teenager, he fought during the Second World War as a member of the Waffen-SS. After the war, my father was tried along with other Waffen-SS members during the historic Nuremberg trials. He was then interred for 2 years at hard labor as a part of the denazification process. After his release, he moved to Canada to begin a new life. His Nazi background and the fact that he was close to Hitler, up to and including the very last days of the war, were put behind him. My father, Richard F. Reiter, to my knowledge, is one of the last people alive today who had met Hitler. And he told me that he is at a point in his life where he felt he could open up and tell all he knows about the times, places, and events he was a part of.
How difficult it is to deal with the emotionalism of conflict of, is my dad a good guy? Is he a bad guy? What is my dad?
Today I have come to understand that Hitler was a father figure to my own father.
Mr. Reiter?
Yeah.
Hi.
I met Richard in a retirement nursing home in Upper Ontario. The series of interviews I held with Richard would be the first and last time he would ever reveal his personal contact with the man he admired and saw as his father figure, Adolf Hitler.
Right.
My name is Richard Reiter. I was born in 1928 in Berchtesgaden. Bercht is an old German word for witch, and Gaden means the garden. So the garden of the witches, because everything was so wild when it was discovered. But when I grew up, it was a very quiet village in the Bavarian mountains, bordering on Austria. I attended school in Berchtesgaden with my brother, Günther, who was a year older than I. My father had opened a shop in Bavarian costumes at the hotel where Hitler stayed once in a while and held his speeches when he came to Berchtesgaden. Whenever he came to Berchtesgaden, he always came to the store to buy something. My aunt, Mitzi Reiter, Maria Reiter, was behind the counter. He would always kiss her hand, stroke her hair, and everybody could see that he was having special emotions when he saw her. But to us children, it wasn't apparent that she was having sex with Hitler at that point. In 1934, Mitzi was invited to attend a social event at Hitler's house, the Berghof. Hitler asked Mitzi to bring us along. There may be some other children there, he said, and the kids can play with the dog maybe. And so my mother dressed us up in our Sunday best, and we were excited to hop into Hitler's Mercedes-Benz open car and drive through the village and wave to all of our friends.
What were the first things you noticed about Hitler when you first met him, if you can remember?
It's like everybody else, that stupid fly under his nose. He was trying to be very nice, and the first thing he said, come with me and we've got to have some cake. So he led us over to the table and put some cake on for Günther and me. You know, we ate our cake and drank a cup of milk. We were up there almost for several weeks, months when he was in Berchtesgaden. Any time that he had a chance, he would send the car down and we would go up there and walk the dog. And we would always be given a piece of cake and hot chocolate or milk. What is penetrating about him is when he pretended to be outraged. You know, when he was practicing in front of a mirror to see himself if he looked serious enough or angry enough. He spent hours and hours like a professional actor in front of a mirror looking at himself. He didn't want anybody to know about this because he wanted to give the impression that it came instantaneously. Well, after Mitzi introduced us, he immediately said, you can call me Uncle Wolf. So Uncle Wolf, we call him Uncle Wolf. Yeah. To us, he became like family. We thought he was an uncle, you know. So, you know, while all the other people were kowtowing all around him, we didn't think that we had to do that because we were family. You know, Hitler did not overwhelm us as children, as a politician. He was a nice uncle.
So did your father know that you were going to meet Hitler every day?
We hardly ever talked to our father. We hated our father. Both my brother and I hated our father. My mother hated my father. We never wanted to see him.
Richard, why did you agree to do this interview and to participate in this film?
I want to correct some of the things that are being thrown about as everything about us was wrong, and that's not true. A lot of it was wrong. As far as me, as a German being brought up in Germany, I benefited educationally, physically, from the fact that the state, which was National Socialism, did this for everybody.
This is the time of year when the boys of the fatherland become state servants, because the state regards physical training as their #1 duty.
At that time, I was already a young Nazi. I considered myself to be superior, you know, that the whole thing was organized in such a way so the Darwinian system, you know, the most fit get to the most elevation. So I was very lucky, and I also was very determined. I wanted to be the best. We were all brought up as the future leaders of Germany.
In 1944, recruitment age was lowered to 16. Richard was drafted and along with his brother Günther served in the SS as a front fighter.
I belonged to the Waffen-SS, which to me was a brotherhood. You had to be 1.80 meters tall, you had to be physically healthy. So I have my passport of ancestry. You had to prove that you were Aryan for 3 generations, and I had to prove, because I wanted to become an officer, that I had 5 generations of Aryans, and I have that with me. We were highly motivated, young, idealistic Nazis.
Were you ever involved during the war in actual killing of people?
Well, through the flak, yes.
How many people did you kill in the war?
So, as a listener, we didn't keep count. No.
But did you ever try to resist an order?
I can't see where I could have had any choice to say reject the system. The system was good to me. Do you understand?
Only months after being drafted to the war, Richard's brother Gunther was killed in battle, together with another two of the family cousins and an uncle. Richard's mother could not stand the loss, and soon after, she passed away broken-hearted. During a battle with the Russian army, Richard was wounded in his back, hospitalized, and then returned to serve in the town where he was born, Berchtesgaden. During the last days of the fighting, he was called to the local headquarters to carry out a secret mission.
I was asked to take a briefcase to Obersalzberg because I became the courier. Being a local boy, I knew all the roads. I was to see the commander to give him that briefcase. I was told that he was up at Goering's house. And of course, we knew nothing what happened. Goering by this time was in their guard.
On April 22, 1945, Hermann Goering was informed that the Führer intends to commit suicide. Goering sent a telegram to Hitler requesting permission to assume control of the Reich. Considering his request an act of treason, Hitler removed Goering immediately from all his positions, expelled him from the party, and ordered his arrest. Richard was ordered to hand the briefcase with the order inside from Hitler to Hermann Goering's bodyguard.
Frankie was his name, and I rang the doorbell at Goering's house and I handed him the briefcase, and he had a key already. At that moment, the anti-aircraft guns started shooting and their sirens started going on. He said, "Run to that pillbox." There was one right beside Goering's pool, and I went inside and he went inside. You could just feel the whole earth quivering. Then it stopped. I wanted to know what happened if the house was hit. So I opened up, nothing left. It was hit by 4 bombs or more. Nothing. Just dirt and dust in the air. And then I heard the guns again and I closed it because I knew the second wave was on the way. I could see flames shooting up, way up in the sky. There was only one place that could be, it was Hitler's house. When I finally waited 15 minutes, no more bombings. I opened up and got out. My motorcycle was lying on its side. And so I drove down to Hitler's house where the walkway is up. And the bloody place was just one big funeral pyre. The strange thing was not a single guard around. I had my shield on, courier. I mean, I was safe, but anybody else would be shot on sight. It's Hitler's house we're talking about. And but I didn't see anybody coming because Goering was under death. And it might be that what was contained in that briefcase, it was from the Reichskanzlei, Berlin. It said on the outside, there was a gold stamp on it. Hitler had the order to kill him. Frankie took Goering down to Schloss Mautern, and that's where they got caught by the Americans.
So can I assume that if you would have made it on time to Hermann Goering's house, despite all the bombings that happened in the area on that day, delivering that order, Hermann Goering would have been shot that day?
Yes. And we found out afterwards that the commander had dismissed the garrison and told them the war was over.
After the war ended, in an attempt to gain back its world legitimacy, Germany began the process called denazification, converting the Nazi system back to democracy. As part of the transition process, Germany prosecuted those involved in the war in the famous collective trials at Nuremberg.
I was tried as a war criminal, and I was sentenced. And this is what really pissed me off about Germany, that a country that you fight for, instead of being grateful, puts you on the hard labor, cuts you off any possibility of developing intellectually. If I say you can't go to university, you dig ditches.
In the early 1950s, Richard was released from prison, having no family to return to, in a devastated post-war Germany and a war criminal record. Richard's future seemed hopeless.
On the way home, I saw this notice on the sidewalk that says, "Come in and talk to us. Canada wants you." And I said, "Canada? That's the dark, the empty space north of the United States." The Americans, 3 times I was turned down by the Americans. They wouldn't let me in. I'm on a blacklist, even today. So I went in there. The guy said to me, "Do you want to go to Canada?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you speak English?" I said, "Yes. I mean, I fairly well." And then he started talking to me and he said, "Listen, you should be going tomorrow." Yes, yes, I'd love to go tomorrow. I'll put you on the next boat to go to Canada. Not a question about my past. So I left Germany in a hurry.
And so, Richard, still a young man, created himself a new life. In Canada, he married Jane, and they created a family of boys.
When I came to Canada, as soon as we arrived in my wife's hometown, her mother came out and said, Richard, you're locked. My cousin just had a heart attack." I said, "What do you mean?" "But she teaches history. And we need a history teacher." And I said, "Fine, okay, I'm available." This was the Forest Hill Junior High School. I knew Forest Hill because my brother-in-law lived there. And I knew it was the wealthiest part of Toronto that lived there, but I didn't know what the school system was like. At 3 o'clock, I went up there, and there was Dr. Jordan, who was the chairman, and 6 other board members, every one of them a Jewish doctor or a professor, and they put me through the grill. I found out that the majority of the students are Jewish in the school. He said, do you have anything against Jewish kids? I said, "No, I don't. No, but they might not want to have me." And he convinced them that he would guarantee that it would pay off. It was an experience that I would say was the highlight of my life, not just my school years, but my life. And it worked my entire 17 years that I was in Forest Hill. I was the head of a history department. I rarely spent an hour in the staff room because I was out playing soccer with the kids. I wanted to teach Jewish youngsters, and I like Jewish youngsters. As I said, I can show you my book. It's full of photographs of Jewish youngsters. It's a strange proof, yeah.
I wanted to find any record of Richard teaching in Forest Hill Junior High just to confirm this and to know whether his supervisors knew of his past. With the help of the Ontario Jewish Archives, I was allowed access to the archive vault to find only a small clue in this big mystery.
Font 17, Central Region, Series 503, Box 7. And there's a letter here, dated January 13, 1976, regarding Richard Ryder. I assume it is the same Richard Ryder who gave us some trouble when he was at Forest Hills Junior High, with his stories about how he knew Hitler as a neighbor and how Hitler and the Nazis weren't so bad, all of which was supposed to be kind of a shock treatment for his students, and none of which seemed to damage his credibility and popularity with the Jewish students.
If I had been anti-Semitic, I would never have gone to a Semitic school. I have a great deal, not only sympathy, but empathy for the Jewish people. The Jewish people I got to know are very much the way I think. It's ironic, isn't it?
What about regrets?
Sure. Regrets?
Regrets.
Oh, yes, I have some regrets. I have regrets in terms of well, yeah, there's a few things in life that I did that I'm not proud of, but it wasn't anything criminal.
Do you feel any responsibility as a German? I mean, you served in the SS, you knew Hitler. How do you feel about yourself?
I know it's very difficult to to say, that I don't feel responsible, but I feel sad. The reason I can't feel responsible for any of those things is because I was not in on the planning. And I was, 17 when the war ended. So, you show me a country where 17-year-olds have a great deal of influence on the political direction. I did nothing personally, except once or twice in the war when you do things that are done in war. Pulling the trigger when you could have stopped. Not being sure where the civilians in the house that you blew up. And these are the things that later in life, they bother you. They didn't bother me then. I tell everybody I'm glad we lost, and they hate me for that in Germany. I've done something, that's it. I've been punished in some ways, by being cast out by my own country, practically. And then coming to Canada, everything changed, and I tried to be as good a Canadian and as creative and as hopeful and as useful as I can be. It's a better lifestyle.
If you would have had to forgive someone about everything that's happened to you in the war, would you forgive Hitler? Or would you forgive your father? Who would it be easier for you to forgive?
No, I can never forgive Hitler. Yeah, he killed my brother. My mother, my uncle, 3 cousins, and I got a broken back out of it. Well, excuse me. I didn't think at 88 you still have tears left. No, it's Uncle Wolf is a fading memory, and I would personally put a garrote around his neck.
Getting to know Richard and his life story was overwhelming. There were moments I really resented him, but also moments that I could relate to him and even understand how he admired the man that I hate. But not for a second did I forgive or forget the cruelty of the Nazis. The tears at the end of the meeting with Richard were not shed because of the 6 million, not even the 60 million. Those were tears of his personal loss. Hatred has a heavy price. After meeting Richard, I knew that I must continue my journey. My next destination, on the tip of the Bavarian Alps, Berchtesgaden.
בכניסה לברקסגאדן, על האלפים האוסטריים, גבול אוסטריה-גרמניה. אתה יודע כמה סרטים יש שרואים את היטלר הולך בשביל הזה? בעלייה לבית? We're now at Obersalzberg, at the site of the former Berghof, Adolf Hitler's Bavarian retreat, Bavarian home. The place is so quiet, it's almost impossible to imagine what horror came out from a man that was here. These are the steps that led to the Berghof, to the entrance of the house, of Hitler's house. Weird experience to be here.
Adolf Hitler's image immediately evokes thoughts of a monstrous figure, the embodiment of evil. But in the summer of 1934, the Führer was in the process of designing his public image in a completely different way. A year after coming to power, he wanted to penetrate the hearts of the Germans, not just as a leader, but as a man who enjoys the laughter of children and the beauty of nature. And what would send such a message better than a picture of him next to a sweet, blonde and blue-eyed kid? Gerhard Bartels was that kid. Now in his 90s. Gerhard's short encounter with Hitler would not only affect his entire life, but would also lay the grounds for the enormous influence of Hitler's propaganda machine in an image that will be seen and would affect millions.
I could not believe one moment this click changed my life and the future for Germany, for the influenza from Germany. But the people saw this picture and then they believe Hitler was a very friendly man. And
If you would have known then, as a child,
yes,
that this picture would have such influence on Germany and would make people trust Hitler, would you still take that picture again?
I don't know. In this time, it would be not possible to make this picture again. But I don't make it, or maybe this picture.
You would not take it again?
No. Not now. What was after this time was in the war and after the war. And there was too much crazy things. I will never forget the day I met Hitler. We was in the wood and the children nurse called Hitler come, the Führer come, and then we must go down, change the clothes. That was here on this open terrace. It was a historical moment for me or for the people.
When the picture was taken, were there a lot of people surrounding
Yes,
and looking at you?
yes, there was many people here. All Heil mein Führer, all Heil mein Führer.
Did it make you feel special that they chose you to take the picture with him?
No, I was too young. I was 5 years old, 5 or 6 years.
But do you really remember it?
Yes.
Or just from the photograph?
Something I remember.
What do you remember?
I remember he asked me what I like, cake, what cake I like. I say apple cake. Then he eat also apple cake, and he bring me apple cake and chocolate. And then he asked me, what your profession when you older? I say I don't know. You see, I don't like this. Hold me so near, so close.
For me, coming here to Hintersee and to Berchtesgaden, to Obersalzberg, makes me think how, from the most peaceful place in the world, or one of the most peaceful places, and so beautiful and so relaxed, how come that here is where Hitler came up with all his ideas? You know, this is pretty amazing that the son of a Jewish man in Berlin that met Hitler and had to escape Germany is now a friend of you, of Gerard, that you met Hitler, you were a part of the propaganda machine.
Yes.
And we are now walking and talking and everything is very nice. It's pretty,
this piece, guys.
pretty surrealistic, actually.
Yeah.
We have to remember that these images were cleverly produced for propaganda purposes, to present an image of Adolf Hitler to the German people and to the rest of the world as someone who was fond of nature, loved the outdoors and children. From that point of view, it shows us the depths to which humanity can sink. People with a hidden agenda can promote themselves, gain political office, become dictators. It's no different today with politicians, but he was probably the first one photographed in these scenarios.
Gerhard Bartels, the first Nazi poster boy, lives today in the same house he lived then, by the same lake. Even though more than 80 years passed since that day he posed for a photo with Hitler and unknowingly contributed his part to the Nazi death machine, Gerhard is still captivated in a photographed frame. In a world almost forgotten, like time has stood still.
Blut und Ehre, blood and honor.
After meeting living evidence of Hitler's propaganda campaign, I continued my journey and traveled to Hitler's birth homeland, Austria. I traveled to Austria to try and find the root, the seed of calamity, the place where Hitler set the stage for World War II. I was eager to find someone who was actually there. Just like those blind baby statues across the European town squares, a witness to the return of the rejected boy Adolf as a winner to his homeland. Someone who was in the Anschluss, the historic evening in which Austria was annexed to Germany. Now, go and find someone who was in the town square more than 80 years ago. Someone who can describe his view of how the masses fell under Hitler's spell. After months of research, I found the untypical witness, Anton.
Hallo.
Nice to meet you.
Mein Name ist Anton Schreiner und wurde 1930 bin ich geboren. Ich war ein armes Kind. Ungefähr mit 5 Jahren, das war ein Gasthaus, dort wurde das Bier aus den Fässern in Flaschen gefüllt. Dort hinten ist der Aufgang in die obere Stube. Und da ist eine Flasche explodiert und ist mir ein Glasscherbe da in das Auge hineingefallen. Ich war schwer verletzt, aber wir konnten uns keinen Arzt leisten. Der Kastanienbaum, mein Gott, der Baum steht noch, weil ich immer die Kastanien gesammelt habe. Habe ich überall mitarbeiten müssen, mähen, mit der Sense. Ich bin ja auch viel herumgegangen und habe Äpfel, Kartoffel und sonstige Sachen mit anderen armen Burschen geklaut und heimgebracht. Hat meine Mutter gelacht. Das ist mein Sohn. das war meinem Vater nicht recht. Mein Vater war fürchterlich grob. Ich bekam viele Schläge. Freut mich, dass mich hereingefahren haben. Das gefällt mich besonders, weil das ist jetzt für mich eine Erinnerung. Alles andere, mein Gott, das ist ein Erlebnis, aber das ist halt doch die Jugend da. Es ist schon lange her. Das kann ich mich noch erinnern. Ich bin heimgekommen in die Wohnung und meine Mutter zeigt mir ein schönes Hemd zusammengelegt, eine Samthose, ein Tücherl, also eine komplette Uniform für die Hitlerjugend. Und die wurde meiner Mutter von meinem Schuldirektor gebracht und ihr gesagt, abends soll er sie anziehen, wenn die Feier am Marktplatz stattfindet. Wir sind von Leonfelden nach Linz gefahren. Der Führer kommt nach Linz. Dieses große Gebäude, das viereckige. 12. März 38.
On March 12, 1938, Hitler invades Austria in a military operation in which not a single shot was fired.
Als Jugendlicher, es war am Marktplatz, wo wir gestern gestanden sind. Dort wurden links und rechts die Hakenkreuzfahnen gehisst. In der Mitte war ein Podium und dort hat der Oberste von Leonfelden, von den Nazis, eine Rede gehalten. Diese Rede, das war mir alles nicht. Ich habe immer nur auf meine Uniform geschaut, weil ich noch nie so schön angezogen war. Erstens war es vorher ein Gedränge. Die Menschen sind auf den Hauptplatz gekommen. Man hat geglaubt, sie sprengen den Hauptplatz. Dann ist endlich der Hitler gekommen. Dann war die Hölle los.
Through the tranquil, colorful town of Lentz, march and ride the army of gray-clad invaders heralding the approach of the new dictator, returning to his native land for the first time in 24 years.
Ich bin da bei diesem Engel. Das weiß ich noch genau. Das war alles voll mit Menschen. Und ich bin auf der Schulter von meinem Onkel oben gewesen, Grenz.
Adolf Hitler, modern Caesar, enters the land of his birth in his modern chariot of triumph.
Der Führer, unser Führer, das war ja doch endlich wären wir ein richtiges Volk.
500,000 pack the streets while buildings are covered with the symbols of the German Reich.
Und da habe ich mit meiner 6x9 Kamera probiert. Da habe ich diese eine Aufnahme gemacht.
In front of 500,000 Austrians in ecstasy, Hitler emerges from the balcony in the town square and describes his vision, as can be seen in this extremely rare film footage. It was a historic night and Hitler's first step in reshaping Europe.
Ich habe an diesen Auftrag geglaubt, habe für ihn gelebt und gekämpft. Und ich glaube, ich habe ihn jetzt erfüllt und ihr seid voll.
Ich war froh, weil vorher es so schlecht war. Wir hatten ja nichts gehabt. Hunger, keine Kleidung. Ich war so arm angezogen, dass die Mutter den Schmuck verkaufen musste bei dem Juden, damit sie mir eine bessere Hose kaufen können für die Schule. Das hat der Hitler gesagt. Diese Brut diese Brut, die gehört weg.
By the end of the night, Anton and his cousin managed to maneuver their way through the dense crowd and approached Hitler's Mercedes as he prepared to leave.
Ich habe nur mein Vis-à-vis angestarrt und das war der Hitler. Und er ist vor uns gestanden. Wir haben gezittert, haben wir vor lauter Aufregung. Das Bierchen haben wir nicht aufschlagen können, gar momentan. Hat uns Tappel gegeben, Tor durcheinander gebracht. Und dann hat er sich bei jedem separat mit einem Händedruck verabschiedet. Und ganz Heil Hitler, wir sind wieder stramm da gestanden. Ja. Der Hitler war ja lieber zu mir wie mein Vater. Weil von meinem Vater habe ich nur Ohrfeigen gekriegt. Hintern. Bam, 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 batschen, batschen, bam, bam. Wir waren in einer anderen Welt. Bis dass er aufgestiegen ist ins Auto und weggefahren ist. Oh weh, der Führer ist nicht mehr da. Ich persönlich, ich war begeistert von diesem Mann. Er war mir lieber wie mein Vater.
If Hitler would have told you, back then, to take a gun and to kill a Jew, would you do it?
Also, ich war richtig begeistert. Und ich hätte für diesen Mann alles getan.
The next morning, after the historic night back in Anton's hometown, Leonfelden, the secret police immediately started to demonstrate their loyalty to Hitler and to implement his anti-Jewish ideology, as described by Anton from his personal viewpoint.
8 Uhr war Schule und die Gestapo ist gekommen 7 Uhr in der Früh, weil sie genau gewusst haben, diese Zeit sind die Leute in der Kirche. Ich als Bub bin da heraufgekommen und sehe da, und die Gestapo ist links und rechts gestanden mit dem Gewehr. Und da haben sie den Juden und die Frau mit einem kleinen Koffer sind sie herausgegangen und haben sie dann in den Wagen hinten hineingeworfen. Keine Stiege, hinaufgeworfen. Und dann haben sie noch im Haus gesucht, weil sie gewusst haben, es fällt der Bub. Aber er war nirgends zu finden. Dann haben sie zugemacht, eingestiegen und dahin waren sie. Kein Mensch hat etwas gewusst. Today, now, in the last day, I think, whom was the son? Weil er war dann weg. I believe the shopman hat ihn irgendwo hingebracht. Der war kein Nazi, der war mehr katholisch. Und ich glaube, der hat diesen Sohn zu irgend von ihm Verwandte gebracht, dass er durchgekommen ist. Anders ist es nicht möglich. Er war ja etwas älter wie ich, der Sohn.
But the Gestapo didn't stop with just taking the Jews.
Da neben uns hat eine gewohnt, eine alte Frau, die ist immer fortgegangen und hat, wenn man ihr ein paar Groschen gegeben hat, hat sie gesungen. O Tannenbaum, wie schön sind deine Blätter. Behinderte ins KZ gebracht. Von meiner Sicht aus, es gab den ersten Krieg Polen, dann Frankreich, Belgien, Holland. Ich war so begeistert, weil Deutschland wurde so groß. Ich war restlos begeistert. Man hat wirklich geglaubt, es geht nur so weiter. Und alle Länder müssen sich irgendwie dem Deutschen Reich unterordnen, weil wir ja Wir waren das Herrenvolk sozusagen. Aber trotzdem habe ich immer noch nichts gewusst von den Gaskammern. Ich wusste nichts. Ich habe aber auch nie nachgeforscht. Ich habe das Leben einfach, es war schwer, der Krieg, es waren die Sorgen, es war alles andere war wichtiger wie diese Menschen da in diesem KZ in Mauthausen. Das habe ich schon gewusst. Da gibt es die. Aber nicht nur Juden, sondern auch Politiker und auch Verbrecher, Mörder, Räuber und so weiter. Dass die Juden systematisch vernichtet wurden, wurde mir eigentlich nie gesagt. Und ich bin auch nicht darauf gekommen. Ich war geblendet von ihm und begeistert bis zu dieser Stunde.
On May 1st, 1945, while the world waited in suspense for over an hour, the 90 minutes before the announcement of Hitler's death were perhaps the most dramatic broadcast of the Second World War. Listeners around the world, and especially in Germany, were told that a special announcement by the German government would be broadcasted at 9 p.m. Not since Hitler came to power had the term German government been used over the radio. All major announcements were made by the Führer. At 9:40 p.m., a standby warning was given, followed by Richard Wagner's Twilight of the Gods. An announcer came to the microphone at exactly 9:43 p.m.
Aus dem Führerhauptquartier wird gemeldet, dass unser Führer Adolf Hitler heute Nachmittag in seinem Befehlsstand in der Reichskanzlei bis zum letzten Atemzuge gegen den Bolschewismus kämpfen, für Deutschland gefallen ist.
Der Sender gesagt hat, der deutsche Sender, oh, heute ist unser geliebter Führer im Kampf um Berlin gefallen. Da sind mir die Tränen runtergeronnen. Weil mir so leid war. Ich habe es nicht verstehen können, dass es sowas gibt. Das ist eine Ungerechtigkeit. Ganz. Aber einige Wochen später hat man es dann in der Zeitung gelesen, dass er Selbstmord und Gift genommen hat. Dann war es vorbei. Dann war ich so enttäuscht von ihm, dass ich nichts mehr, also bis heute, ich bin kein Anhänger. Ich rede sogar mit manchen, wenn ich merke, sie sind noch begeisterte Hitler-Anhänger, rede ich mit ihnen und sage, ihr habt es nicht erlebt.
After Germany lost the war, the Soviet Union occupied Austria for over a decade. Austrian soldiers and even youngsters were often interrogated and arrested by the Soviets. Anton, who by the end of the war was only 15 years old, but participated in the Hitler Youth War efforts, was not spared by the Russians.
Und da bei dem Haus, da haben sie mir zugeschaut und haben mich dann auf den Lostragen und hinein zu der Station. 20 über den Rücken mit den Riemen von dem Soldaten. Gell? Ich bin verhört worden und bin gleich verurteilt worden zu 3 Jahren Zuchthaus nach Russland.
After 3 years imprisonment in Russia, Anton was released back to Austria, which was still under Soviet occupation. In the first years, he completed his studies and joined the railway company as a carpenter. In 1955, the Soviets withdrew from Austria, which reopened its borders to Western Europe.
The great bell of St. Stephen's rings out that Austria is free at last.
As the years moved on, Anton never got married nor had any children. The money he earned at the railway company was dedicated to his new passion, mountain climbing.
Highest mountain from Austria.
You went all the way up? You climbed it?
Yeah.
Yes?
And traveling around the world.
I was in each lane. You see, from each lane I have
a flag.
Korea, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Australien, Bali, Neuseeland, Osterinsel, Tahiti, Hawaii, Nordamerika, San Francisco. Ich habe so viel gesehen, was das andere sagen, der Schreiner ist schon 100 Jahre alt.
In the 1980s, as a devoted Christian, Anton visited the Holy Land, and that was his first encounter with Jewish people living in Israel.
Ich habe die ganze Welt gesehen. New York, San Francisco, alles Mögliche. Wunder. Die Südsee, von der alle träumen. Uninteressant. Ich möchte nur nach Jerusalem. Da habe ich es gesehen. Wunderbar. Und auf einmal ist es so schön. Die herrliche Straße nach Nazareth. Und so süß und so gut. Das Obst so herrlich. Wenn ich könnte, würde ich am liebsten morgen nach Israel fahren.
Half of your life you were anti-Semitic and Nazi, you hated the Jews, and all of a sudden you're such a great fan of the Jews. What does it make you feel about yourself?
Schade diese Zeit, wo ich verblendet wurde, einer falschen Idee nachgelaufen bin. Schade, schade und nochmal schade diese Zeit. Sie war umsonst wertlos.
Herzlich willkommen an alle zu unserer heutigen Karfreitagsveranstaltung der Rema-Gemeinde. Das jüdische Volk in Israel und der ganzen Welt, es feiert derzeit das Pessachfest. Es ist die Geschichte der Befreiung des Volkes Israels aus der Knechtschaft aus Ägypten, als Gott sie mit mächtiger Hand aus der Sklaverei aus Ägypten herausgeführt hat.
Diese Menschen, die nichts dafür konnten, die unschuldig waren, komplett unschuldig, ahnungslos, niemandem etwas getan. Das sind doch viele Juden gewesen, die prima waren. Das Fürchterlichste an dem Holocaust hat mich ja am meisten ergriffen, wenn ich gesehen habe, wie da vom Zug Frauen und solche Kinder, die hinüber, die Männer da hinüber. Und dann hat man es erfahren, dass sie in 2, 3 Tagen sind sie alle vergast gewesen. Da kann ich mit ruhigem Gewissen sagen, nein, ich habe keinen Tropfen Blut, das habe ich nie gemacht. I was a Nationalsozialist. I did like Hitler, but this is forgotten. And now I will nicht sagen like, but I akzeptiere das jüdische Volk.
On my way back from Austria to Munich, I couldn't help but think of Anton as another victim of Hitler's incitement, a victim of brainwashing and false promises, a victim of a dark age system. The disillusionment that Anton was going through was not typical to all Nazis. The next subject I wanted to meet was once a beautiful baby girl and the Nazi party princess. Her name is Edda Goering, Hermann Goering's only daughter and Adolf Hitler's goddaughter. Born in 1938, Edda Goering inherited most of her father's stolen possessions, and she's estimated to be worth over $25 million. She was only 7 when the war ended and remained anonymous most of her life, away from the public eye. Edda Goering has been an active supporter of the radical right-wing political parties in Germany and attends Nazi memorial evenings. She's a celebrity of Nazi supporters. She never talked publicly about her father's actions nor apologized. I wanted to share with her some of the information that I was told by Richard Reiter in Canada, who personally delivered Hitler's assassination order against her father, and to know if she knew about it, and if she did, how can she still remain loyal to her godfather Hitler after he sought to kill her father? What is she made of that allows her to be so blind even today?
Hallo, Entschuldigung für mein Deutsch. Ist das Madame Edda Goering?
Ja, wer spricht da?
Mein Name ist Ronen Israelski and I am a filmmaker from Canada.
Was willst du von mir?
I am working on a film and I have some new information that might interest you regarding regarding Hitler. And
Geh Deutsch lernen, bevor du mich wieder anrufst. Auf Wiedersehen.
Ich habe hier eine Übersetzer, okay?
Nein, lassen Sie mich in Ruhe, sonst schicke ich Ihnen meinen Anwalt auf den Hals, ja?
No, let me alone. If not, I'm going to send you the lawyer.
And she hung up.
Yeah.
Why did you send a lawyer? What did I do that she needs to send me a lawyer?
She will send you a lawyer that he will
tell me not to call her again.
Not to call her again. That's it. That's it.
Why is she so unwilling to talk, Werner? Why do you think?
Because she would have, what she never did publicly, she would have to discuss what her father did, the role he had, he played. He was who made public the laws against the Jews, and she does not want to see that. She only wants to see the nice daddy.
Okay.
After a thoughtful walk, I started a random conversation with an elderly woman walking down the street.
Hello. You speak English?
Yes, definitely.
Yes? Who lives here?
Where do you live?
I live in Canada.
In Canada?
In Canada, yes.
Where in Canada?
Toronto.
I didn't want Toronto.
You didn't want Toronto? No.
I didn't like it.
Oh, what is your name?
Götz.
Götz?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You live in number 12?
Number 12, no, number 16.
Ah, 16. You know Edda?
Pardon?
Do you know Edda? Edda Goering. Do you know her?
We're opposite.
Oh. Is she okay? She's nice?
Yes, we don't talk too much.
Why?
I don't know. She's always busy.
She's always busy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I come with you to see where you live?
Pardon me?
Can I come to your house to see where you live?
Yes, sure.
And you can show me Edda?
If you want to.
Yes, okay. I live in Toronto, yes. I came a long way. I wanted to talk to Edda, but she doesn't, I tried to, but I don't know if she speaks English. Hello? Who is this?
Suddenly, without notice and without planning, I found myself in a random street encounter in Munich with Hitler's only goddaughter.
Hello. Hello, Frau Gehring. Hello. My name is Ronen. I speak with you on the phone from Canada. My name is Ronen. I speak with you on the phone from Canada.
Ja, ich habe Sie gebeten, Deutsch zu lernen.
Ja, richtig. Nice to meet you. Pleasure.
Ja, was wollen Sie von mir?
I make a research.
Nein, nix.
One question.
Nein, nix.
Okay. Frau Gehring, Entschuldigung. Nein. Okay, that was Edda Gehring. She's not willing to talk, obviously. She remembered me because she said, yes, you're the guy that called me and I told him to learn German before you call me. So she remembered who I was. That's it.
And that's how it ended. A random street encounter with Hitler's goddaughter, one of the most mysterious women of World War II, and the closest I could get to Hitler himself. So I'll never know who she really was, what made her keep her loyalty not only to her terrible father, but mainly to her godfather, who brought such destruction on her personally, on her family, on her country, and the world. But in the eyes of Edda Gehring, I swear, I could see for a moment Hitler's eyes and gaze, as if time has stood still. But it hasn't. I couldn't help but compare. Over 80 years ago, my father met Hitler on the street in Berlin. Afraid his identity will be revealed, he ran away. Now his son, who came in peace, met Hitler's goddaughter, but she ran away. I arrived to Berlin by connection to participate in the memorial event for the 75th anniversary of the Second World War. In this city, my father told me that one day he saw 20 identical Mercedes-Benz cars driving up the street, when suddenly Hitler came out of one of them.
This is where it happened, more than 80 years ago.
I find myself on the way to the memorial event, when suddenly 20 black Mercedes cars, all identical, are driving down the street. On one of them, I immediately notice the flag of Israel. The Israeli president and his convoy are on their way to the ceremony, as if nothing has changed, but so much has. Upon my return to Canada, I received an email from Richard Ryder, whom I have not seen for months. He asked me to drive up again to his place with my camera and meet him again. When I arrived, I could immediately see that Richard was at the end of his life. The least I could do for him was ask the questions that I never dared to ask.
My life is going to be at an end within weeks, and it doesn't bother me.
Weeks from now? Weeks from now?
Yeah. That's what the doctor told me.
And what do you feel? Do you feel it's right?
Oh, I'm quite happy about that. Hey, come on, let's have a cigarette.
If this would be our last meeting, hopefully we will meet again soon, but if it would be our last meeting, what do you want me to
tell the world?
What do you want me to tell the world about Richard?
Approach the truth. Like an investigator in a trial. You know, I want to find the truth.
Richard, did you ever kill a Jew yourself, or hit a Jew, or made a joke about a Jew when he was there?
I probably made a joke.
Did you ever see German soldiers beating up a Jew or killing a Jew? Did you see it in your own eyes? Were you there when something like that might have happened?
I saw a Jew being mistreated.
I really want an honest answer. I really want an honest answer for the record of history. Okay? Did you know during the war, while you were in the war, did you know about the extermination of Jews?
About the what?
The extermination of Jews, the death camps. Did you know about that?
Yes, yes. And not just the Jews. The Untermensch is the
lower people.
Yeah. And that included not just the Jews, the Serbian Slavs.
What did you know about the death camps? What did you know?
Well, I knew about it.
Did you know how they were exterminated?
Yes. Unfortunately, it became a joke.
Tell me the joke.
It's unbelievable. We had songs about, there goes another one. When they heated the ovens.
The crematorium?
The smoke coming up.
The crematorium?
Yeah.
So the joke was, when you saw the smoke, the joke would be, there goes another one.
There goes another one, yeah. But it didn't identify who goes. It wasn't a Jew, it was another one.
That was the last time I met Richard. 3 months later, I received a phone call from his son Russell, who told me that Richard passed away.
You vetted yourself because you tracked me down and you said you would treat my father's condition with sensitivity. You did all of that.
They were all children. Children of a world war. Children of a lost childhood in a time that had no time, had false hope and no future.
Are you optimistic about the future or pessimistic?
I'm optimistic because I am so old.
This was the story of the children who met Hitler, who hijacked their innocence, exploited their dreams, and scarred their future forever. But the aging children I met were fortunate enough to live. 1.5 million children who never met Hitler but absorbed the hate in the eyes of his messengers did not get this chance to look back and reflect.
Die Fotos von den Kindern, da sind so liebe Kinder dabei, da kommen einem die Tränen, ob man will oder nicht.
75 years later, as the world picks up the pieces and moves on to new generations who have never known a world war, there are still a few among us who can speak directly for generations lost forever in the horror of evil. But it won't be long before they'll all be gone.
Das ist das letzte Mal, dass ich da war. Ja. It's the last day. One or 2 years.
These ancient characters and their stories can be our eyes to see across the horizon. And regarding me, I never planned on making this movie. This story found me with a self-written script decades before I was even born. It was a story about one of those meetings that you just never forget. And it happened to be the story of the world's most evil tyrant, Adolf Hitler, and my Abba, my father. Before my Abba passed away, I promised him that I will share his story of the day he met Hitler. Today I can say, full-heartedly, Abba, I fulfilled your wish, and I kept my promise.